You might be making a mistake every day, and it could be silently killing your heart. In the United States, nearly 70% of seniors suffer from high blood pressure, and most don't even realize it. This problem is sneaky. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't warn, and it can cause a heart attack or stroke without giving you time to react. And the worst part, many of these attacks begin with simple habits, like what you drink for breakfast, thinking it's healthy. Today, you're going to discover 7 daily mistakes that are destroying your blood pressure and accelerating the aging of your heart. Some of them are shocking, and number 4 could completely change your routine. Stay with me until the end, because one of these mistakes might be sitting right now in the glass on your table, and you have no idea how dangerous it really is. Take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll receive content like this that helps you and the people you love to age with more health and freedom. Mistake 1. Taking your medication at the wrong time or without a fixed routine. Many people believe that taking their blood pressure medication once a day is enough, regardless of the time. But this is a more serious mistake than it seems. Blood pressure is not a straight line throughout the day. It fluctuates naturally, and there are times when your heart is more vulnerable, especially during the early morning hours. And upon waking, studies reveal that the deadliest cardiovascular events, like heart attacks and strokes, happen between 6 and 10 a.m., precisely when blood pressure rises sharply after sleep. If the medication is taken too late, its peak action may not coincide with this critical moment. The result? The heart is left unprotected exactly when it most needs support. The problem worsens when the person takes the medication at varying times. One day in the morning, another after lunch, another only at night. This creates dangerous fluctuations, where blood pressure may remain high for hours without proper control. It's like trying to put out a fire with buckets of water scattered around the house. Ineffective and risky. Science has already shown that keeping a fixed medication schedule improves the effectiveness of antihypertensive drugs and reduces the risk of fatal cardiac events by up to 45%. What's more, a study published in the European Heart Journal showed that taking medication at night instead of in the morning may offer even greater protection for some patients, lowering nighttime blood pressure without causing daytime hypotension. But be careful, this doesn't mean you should change your medication time on your own. The ideal is to talk to a healthcare professional and create a routine that matches your lifestyle and biological rhythm. The key point is consistency. The body loves predictability, and the heart, especially after 60, needs that to avoid working in peaks and valleys. In addition, not taking the medication with a full glass of water or taking it with certain foods like milk or coffee can affect the absorption of its active ingredients, making the treatment less effective without you even noticing. Maybe you've never stopped to think that something as simple as the timing of your pill could have such an impact on your cardiovascular health. But this is the reality that few doctors explain. Consistency saves lives. And if this mistake already seems surprising, wait until you see the next one, because it involves a so-called healthy food that could be sabotaging your heart. Everyday mistake 2, believing that a glass of wine a day is good for the heart. This is perhaps one of the most widespread beliefs among people over 50. The idea that drinking a glass of red wine a day is healthy, especially for the heart. But what few people know is that this concept spread from an incomplete interpretation of an old study, and current science no longer supports this habit as it once did. It all started with what became known as the French paradox, an observation made in the 1990s. Despite a diet rich in saturated fat, the French had lower rates of heart disease than Americans. The explanation proposed at the time? The high consumption of red wine. That's when the whole world began repeating the phrase, a glass a day is good for the heart. But let's look at the facts. What really protects the heart in red wine is a compound called resveratrol, an antioxidant found in the skin of purple grapes. But the amount of resveratrol in a glass of wine is very small, so small that you would have to drink about 40 glasses per day to reach the levels used in laboratory studies, and no one survives 40 glasses a day. Moreover, alcohol is a known vasoconstrictor, pro-inflammatory, and neurotoxic agent, especially in older people. It can raise blood pressure, interfere with medication effectiveness, disrupt sleep, and even trigger atrial fibrillation, a type of heart arrhythmia common after age 60 and associated with stroke risk. A study published in The Lancet, using data from over 600,000 people, was clear: no level of alcohol consumption is considered safe. When it comes to cardiovascular health, what's more, even light consumption can negatively affect the liver, metabolism, and brain. In other words, the supposed benefit of wine comes more from the grape skin than from the fermented liquid itself. And you don't have to pay that price to get antioxidants. Fresh grapes, grapeskin tea, or even foods like blueberries, jaboticaba, and hibiscus deliver similar compounds with more safety. And if you think, oh, but it's just one glass, I don't overdo it. Know that the body of someone over 60 processes alcohol differently. With less water in the body and a slower liver, the effects are amplified, even in small doses. Additionally, alcohol can dehydrate the body, increase heart rate, and even impair the absorption of essential nutrients for blood pressure control, such as magnesium, potassium, and B-complex vitamins. So that liquid medicine many use to unwind at night may actually be silently harming the heart, liver, and even memory. And if you thought one little glass a day was harmless, wait until you see the next mistake, because it involves something even more common. A morning habit that millions repeat without knowing it completely sabotages blood pressure. Control. Mistake 3. Skipping breakfast and only drinking black coffee on an empty stomach. I just have a little coffee in the morning, then I eat something around 10 or 11. If you recognize yourself in this sentence, pay attention. This habit, so common among people over 50, may be disrupting your blood pressure every day without you realizing it. In the first minutes of the morning, the body goes through a delicate transition from the deep rest of sleep to an alert state. At that moment, cortisol and adrenaline levels naturally rise, and with them, blood pressure increases. Now add to that a strong cup of black coffee with no solid food in your stomach. What happens? You create an extra stimulus in the sympathetic nervous system, further increasing the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline. This raises heart rate, blood pressure, and even anxiety levels, especially in people with a history of hypertension, arrhythmia, or insomnia. And there's more. Prolonged fasting after waking keeps the body in a state of metabolic alert. Without nutrients, the body interprets the situation as scarcity, and for protection, keeps blood vessels more constricted and the metabolism slower. That's the opposite of what's desired for those who need to control blood pressure, vascular, relaxation, and hormonal balance. Study by the American Heart Association pointed out that people who skip breakfast have a 27% higher chance of developing hypertension over the years. This happens because the body enters a pattern of dysregulation. High stress peaks in the morning, followed by large volumes of food throughout the day, which overloads the cardiovascular and digestive systems. And here's another important detail. When breakfast is skipped, coffee becomes the only source of energy and focus during the first hours of the day. This creates a false sense of alertness that masks mild hypoglycemia symptoms like dizziness, mental fatigue, irritability, and even headaches. If you take blood pressure medication on an empty stomach, this habit can intensify side effects like sudden drops in pressure, nausea, and weakness. The result? The body swings between peaks and crashes throughout the day, and this instability is a ticking time bomb for the heart. So what should you do? You don't need to eliminate breakfast, but rather rebuild it intelligently. Something light, with protein like scrambled eggs or plain yogurt, a potassium-rich fruit like banana, and a fiber source like oats or seeds is enough to stabilize blood sugar, protect the nervous system, and help regulate blood pressure. And coffee? Yes, you can still drink it, but in moderation and always alongside real food. Avoid drinking black coffee right after waking. If you wake up thirsty, prefer warm water with lemon in the first few minutes, and then have a nutritious meal too. Prepare your body for the day. If you thought that just drinking coffee on an empty stomach wouldn't have major consequences, wait until you discover the next mistake, because it involves something many consider healthy, but which may silently sabotage your kidneys and further raise your blood pressure. Mistake for drinking water with electrolytes or mineral salts every day without need. You've probably seen it around. Water with electrolytes, alkaline water, water with Himalayan salt, or those mixes that promise deep hydration and mineral replenishment. They've become a trend among those seeking more energy, brain performance, or even detox. But here's a serious warning. For those with high blood pressure or who are elderly, this type of water can be a dangerous trap. Let's get to the point. Most of these waters have added sodium, sometimes in small amounts, sometimes in high doses, and it's not always clear on the label. The problem is that sodium, when consumed in excess, retains fluids in the body, increases blood volume, and consequently raises blood pressure. It's like forcing a hose to push more water than it can handle. The internal pressure rises, and so does the risk of rupture. Now imagine this being done every day without real need by someone who is 60, 70, or 80 years old, who already has stiffer blood vessels, slower kidney function, and often takes medication to control blood pressure. The Result: swollen legs, fatigue when climbing stairs, dizziness, and unexplained increases in blood pressure. In some cases, this can lead to a worsening of the condition, requiring medication adjustments or even hospitalization. A study from the Journal of Clinical Hypertension pointed out that people with hypertension who consume more than 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day have double the risk of cardiovascular events, even if they're on medication. And attention, one bottle of electrolyte water can contain up to 300 milligrams of sodium, more than a small bag of chips. But the worst part isn't the sodium itself, it's the silent accumulation. Many seniors take diuretics and, out of fear of losing minerals, start drinking salted water as a routine. What seems like smart replenishment turns into a dangerous cycle. The kidney tries to eliminate the excess, but with age, its efficiency declines. The consequence: retention, electrolyte imbalance, and unstable pressure. So what should you do? If you engage in intense physical activity, your replenishment should be guided. But if your day is lighter, your diet is already rich in vegetables, and you're not in prolonged fasting, pure water is more than enough to hydrate your body and regulate your blood pressure. And if you want to give it a functional touch without risk, go for natural infusions with herbs like rosemary, mint, or cinnamon. They help circulation without overloading the kidneys. It's also worth remembering that many foods already contain natural sodium, especially cheeses, breads, processed meats, pickles, broths, and even whole grains. Adding electrolyte water to that every day is like throwing more wood on a fire that's already burning. And if you thought you were simply hydrating better, know that this modern habit might be silently sabotaging your kidneys and your heart. And speaking of silent sabotage, the next mistake might be in the most unexpected place in your home, the kitchen, and more precisely, in how you prepare your vegetables. Mistake 5. Overcooking vegetables and destroying the nutrients that regulate your blood pressure. I eat vegetables every day. This is a phrase we often hear from seniors who try to maintain a healthy diet. And it's true. Carrots, zucchini, chayote, sweet potatoes, spinach, they're all there every day on the plate. The problem is that, in many cases, these vegetables are being boiled until they're almost mush. And this simple detail can completely cancel out the positive effects they would have on your blood pressure. Let's understand why. Vegetables are rich in potassium, magnesium, and antioxidants, which help relax blood vessels, eliminate excess sodium, and balance the nervous system. But many of these compounds, especially water-soluble potassium and B vitamins, are extremely sensitive to heat and water. When vegetables are boiled for too long, up to 60% of these nutrients can be lost in the cooking water, according to studies from the USDA, nutrient retention factor. And what do we usually do with that water? We throw it away. In other words, we eat the dead fiber and discard what would actually help our pressure. Another problem is that prolonged cooking alters the fiber structure, making the vegetable less effective for slow digestion, which is exactly what helps keep glucose and pressure levels more stable throughout the day. Furthermore, overcooked vegetables release their natural sugars more quickly, which can contribute to unwanted glycemic spikes in sensitive individuals. So, how do you fix it? The secret lies in smarter and more functional cooking methods. Steaming for just a few minutes, lightly sautéing, or even eating some vegetables raw when possible preserves up to 80% more nutrients. Broccoli, for example, when steamed for 3 minutes, retains up to 4 times more sulforaphane, an anti-inflammatory compound that helps protect blood vessels and reduce pressure. Another tip is to reuse the cooking water in soups, broths, or sauces. That way, the lost minerals return to the dish, and whenever possible, cut your vegetables right before preparing them. When chopped in advance, many antioxidants oxidize, losing potency before they even hit the pan. And for those who find it difficult to change their cooking habits, here's a practical suggestion. Start by changing just one preparation per day. Instead of boiling the carrot, grate it raw and mix it with olive oil and lemon. Or, instead of sautéing kale until wilted, blend a raw leaf in your green juice with apple and cucumber. It's with these small adjustments that big changes happen. And, if you thought you were eating the right way, now you know the problem isn't the food, it's how you treat it in the kitchen. And the next mistake goes even further, because it involves a type of bread that seems healthy but may be raising your blood pressure and sabotaging your health every day, especially when combined with a very common breakfast ingredient. Mistake 6. Eating bread with jam for breakfast, thinking it's a light option if you wake up in the morning. Brew some coffee, slice some bread, and spread a bit of light jam on top, thinking you're making a simple and healthy meal. Be careful. This habit is more dangerous than it seems, especially if you suffer from high blood pressure or want to protect your heart through your diet. Let's start with the bread. Even so-called whole wheat industrial breads are, in most cases, made with ultra-processed flours, preservatives, and high sodium content. In fact, bread is one of the main hidden contributors of sodium in the American diet. According to the CDC, it can account for up to 7% of an adult's daily sodium intake, even without tasting salty. And when we add to that a typical jam, or worse, those diet versions with artificial sweeteners or fructose syrups, we get a glucose and sodium bomb that completely sabotages blood pressure balance in the early hours of the day. This combo causes a blood sugar spike, followed by an insulin spike, which leads to vasoconstriction and increased sodium retention in the kidneys. In other words, blood pressure rises and stays unregulated for hours. Now, picture the scenario. You start your day with spikes in sugar and sodium, low satiety, and no functional nutrients, no potassium, no magnesium, no real fiber or protein. The result, more hunger throughout the day, more salt craving, more energy, and pressure fluctuations. And there's more. If you usually take blood pressure medication with this kind of breakfast, the effects may be masked. You feel like your pressure is under control, but in reality, you're living in cycles of highs and lows, which over time weakens blood vessels, overloads the heart, and increases the risk of stroke. But what about whole wheat bread and sugar-free jam? Even then, the problem remains. Real whole wheat bread is dense, with visible grains, no additive. And that's not what we find in most bakeries and supermarkets. Meanwhile, sugar-free jam may contain polyols, or sweeteners, like sorbitol and maltitol, which disrupt gut microbiota and increase inflammation in people with sensitivity or older age. So, what to do? Replace bread and jam with something that offers real satiety and helps regulate blood pressure. You could, for example, have a slice of sprouted grain bread with mashed avocado and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, or a serving of plain yogurt with chia seeds, cinnamon, and fresh strawberries, which help reduce inflammation, control glucose, and improve vascular function. And if it's hard to change this habit all at once, start by cutting out industrial jam and replacing it with a little fresh fruit with the skin on in small pieces along with seeds. The difference you'll feel in your energy, satiety, and blood pressure control will be noticeable in just a few days. In the end, what seems light and quick may be aging your arteries without you realizing it. And the next mistake is even sneakier, because it has to do with a behavior many people consider harmless after a meal, but one that can silently put the heart at risk every single day. Mistake 7. Lying down or staying inactive right after meals. You have lunch. Feel that heaviness in your body? Head to the couch, relax a bit. Or, if it's at night, go straight to bed. Seems harmless, even deserved. But if this is a constant habit, especially after main meals, you might be sabotaging your blood pressure without realizing it. After a meal, especially one rich in carbohydrates or sodium, the body enters a state known as digestive hyperemia. Blood is redirected to the digestive system, which requires the heart to work harder to keep blood flow balanced throughout the body. It's a silent but significant effort, especially in people with stiffer blood vessels, lower cardiac tone, or those taking antihypertensive medications. If, at that moment, the body enters a state of complete rest, like lying down in bed or staying still on the couch, circulation slows down even more, which can lead to a sudden drop in blood pressure, dizziness, poor digestion, and, over time, even an increase in baseline blood pressure due to hormonal compensations. And there's more. Being inactive after eating promotes the accumulation of visceral fat, the inflammatory fat around the organs, one of the biggest villains when it comes to hypertension. It puts pressure on the kidneys, affects insulin sensitivity, and increases sodium retention, creating a cycle of silent dysregulation. The ideal, according to research published in the Journal of Hypertension, is for seniors to engage in light movements after meals, such as walking around the house, doing the dishes, tending to a plant, or even stretching arms and legs for 5 to 10 minutes. This helps keep blood circulating, activates digestion, stabilizes blood glucose, and prevents dangerous pressure fluctuations in the hours that follow. And note, this doesn't mean you need to go for a walk in the sun or do intense exercise. Quite the opposite. For those over 60, light, mindful, low-intensity movement brings the greatest benefits. A simple 50-step walk after lunch can reduce post-meal glucose levels and stabilize blood pressure by up to 20%. According to a study published in Diabetes Care, another important tip: Avoid very salty meals or excessive liquids before lying down. This increases blood volume, puts more demand on the heart, and can trigger episodes of high blood pressure during sleep, especially in people with sleep apnea or kidney problems. And if you feel your blood pressure gets weird at night, or if you wake up with a headache, a heavy neck, or a sense of fatigue right away, the problem might be here: your inactivity after meals, not your medication. In the end, the body was made to move, even if slowly. And small actions, like standing up after lunch, walking to the window, or stretching a bit, can be the difference between stable blood pressure and a hidden risk growing day by day. Now tell me, have you made any of these mistakes? Because many people make them all and don't even realize it. Which of these habits do you find hardest to change in your routine? Tell us in the comments. We'd all love to help you overcome it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This helps bring this kind of information to more people who don't have access to books, articles, or can't always get the right knowledge from doctors and researchers. And if you want to discover which sugar-free and carb-free foods are behind the incredible vitality of seniors over 90 with active minds, don't miss the next video. There's a food in it that may seem ordinary, but could be the secret to living past 100 with full independence.